All right, guys. So let's get started as we usually do. I'll do the introduction after, but we like to start out with some chanting. And so we're going to chant the Mahamangala Sutta,
which is a very normal sutta to chant. It's a common protective chant. So it gets requested, but also just chanted by regular people as a sort of protection and reminder of the path. So some people might even know it. If not, I highly suggest you learn it. It's got a great tune.
Mm-hmm. So we'll do the Pali first, and then we'll do the English after that. So. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Evang me sutang ekang samayang bhagava savatiyang viharati jetavane yanatha pindaka saharame atako anyatara devata apikantaya rattiya apikantavana Kevala kapang jetavanang obhasetva yena bhagavaten upasankamitva bhagavantang abhivadetva ekamantang atasi ekamantang titakosa devata bhagavantang gattaya jabhasi Bahudeva manusacha mangalani yachintayung akankamana sotanang bruhi mangalamuttamang asevanacha balanang panditanyang cha sevana puja cha pujaniyanang etang mangalamuttamang Patirupa desavaso cha pubbe cha katapunyata atta sama panidhi cha hetang mangalam uttamang bahu sachan cha sippan cha vinayo cha susikkito subhasita chaya vacha hetang mangalam uttamang Mata pita upatanang putta dharasa sangaho anakula chakamanta etang mangalam uttamang danang cha dhammacharya cha nyatakanyang cha sangaho anavajjani kammani etang mangalam uttamang Arati virati papa majjapanna cha sanyamo apamado cha damesu etang mangalam uttamang garavo cha nivato cha santutti cha katanyuta kalena dhamma savanang etang mangalam uttamang Kanti cha sovachassata samananyang cha dassanang kalena dhamma sakkaccha etang mangalam uttamang tapocha brahmacharya cha ariya satchana dassanang nibbana satchikiriya cha etang mangalam uttamang Putassa loka dhammehi chittang yassana kampati asokang virajang kemang etang mangalam uttamang etadisani katvana sabbatang aparajita sabbata sotingachanti tang te sang mangalam uttamanti Etena Satyavajjena Hotu Te Jaya Mangalam. Etena Satyavajjena Hotu Te Jaya Mangalam. Etena Satyavajjena Hotu Te Jaya Mangalam. All right, friends. Just going to check the chat before we go to the English. Let's see who's here. Adriana, welcome. Okay, so now we'll do the English. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Sublime One was living near Savatthi, at Jeta's Grove, in the park of Anathapindika. Then in the middle of the night, a certain deity of astounding beauty, lighting up the entire Jeta's Grove, approached the Sublime One. Drawing near, she paid homage to the Sublime One and stood to one side. Standing thus, the deity addressed the Sublime One in verse. Many deities and humans have pondered on blessings, desiring their well-being. Tell me the blessing supreme. To associate not with the foolish, to be with the wise, to honor the worthy ones. This is a blessing supreme. To reside in a suitable location, to have good past deeds done, to set oneself in the right direction. This is a blessing supreme. Great learning and craft, and a discipline well trained in, and whatever utterance is well spoken. This is a blessing supreme. To be well caring of mother, of father, looking after spouse and children, to engage in a harmless occupation. This is a blessing supreme. Selfless giving, living the just life, supporting all relatives, and blameless action. This is a blessing supreme. To cease and abstain from evil, complete restraint from intoxicants, to be diligent in virtuous practices. This is a blessing supreme. To be reverent and humble, content and grateful, to hear the Dhamma at the right time. This is a blessing supreme. To be patient and obedient, the seeing of recluses, to discuss the Dhamma at the right time. This is a blessing supreme. To live austerely and purely, to see the noble truths, and to realize Nibbana. This is the blessing supreme. A mind unshaken when touched by the worldly states, sorrowless, stainless, and secure. This is the blessing supreme. Those who have fulfilled all these are everywhere invincible. They find well-being everywhere. Theirs is a blessing supreme. By the power of this truth, may joyous victory be yours. By the power of this truth, may joyous victory be yours. By the power of this truth, may joyous victory be yours. All right, friends. So this is a very, very good sutta, very good chant for everybody to reflect on if you're a Buddhist practitioner. These are called blessings, not only because it allows you to have gratitude for when you have these blessings already, but they're called blessings because they're things to strive for, things to try to implement in your life so that you can be blessed by them. So you could never go wrong if you try to live your life and implement your life in such a way as shown in this sutta, in this blessing. Hello, Gleam Tech. All right, friends. So welcome to Dhammapalooza for February 1st. So those of you who've been here, you know the drill, you know what we do. Those of you who are new, my name is Bhante Jayasara. This is Bhante Pamuto. And so we are currently residing in New York City at a small local vihara dwelling. And every Monday at this time, we have this Dhammapalooza. And so what we do here usually is, the normal session with monastics, the traditional thing is you come and you sit down and you listen to a monk talk. And that has lots of benefits. But what I like to do is I like to have this become more of a community-driven event. Right? This is what I mean. Right? We have suttas we can talk about. We have topics we can talk about. We're monks. We've been doing this for a long time. We know we can talk about things. But what we like to do is to give this platform to you guys, right? So if you have any questions related to Buddhism, meditation, monasticism, if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss or the community to discuss, you can type those in the chat. Never feel like typing in the chat or having a conversation in the chat is interrupting us, right? If we're doing a reading, if we're doing something, every once in a while we'll take a look at the chat, but the chat's not going to bother us, right? This is a community event. It's a palooza of Dhamma, as Adriana likes to say, right? This is a coming together to share 2 hours of good Dhamma with each other, right? Whether that be readings, talks, chantings, whatever, right? So right now we're going to leave the forum open to you guys, and we're going to check the chat. So if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, any questions you'd like us to answer, right? Now is the time to type those in the chat. We do have a wonderful sutta backed up for if there is nothing or when there's nothing. So we're good. Oh, Don is very good, Don. Thanks for leading.
You got the hint.
Yes.
He was putting it on pretty thick, but basically.
Yeah. I love people with questions. It's very good. All right. So Don says, Dear Venerable, I come to consult you on a sensitive issue. A friend of mine has suffered a miscarriage and I really want to support her, but I haven't been able to find good advice in the Dhamma. Maybe I don't know how to search correctly. Could you give me some insight on this? Yeah. This is, well, first of all, I think the important thing to understand is your friend a Buddhist, right? Because there needs to be a certain sensitivity for people who are not Buddhist. We can give you a sutta. We can give you suttas about the Buddha talking about the loss of loved ones and things like that. But it might not be the most beneficial thing for somebody who's not in a certain state of mind and who's not a practitioner, right? So this is very, very hard. One thing, I guess, what are your thoughts on Kisa Gotami? The story of Kisa Gotami for a woman who had a miscarriage? It might be a little too much.
Well, that's. I think
see, this is.
Yeah. Well,
this is.
The thing is, the traditional sutta references, like, in order for it to have been a story that was passed down from mouth to mouth, just for 2,000 years, it had to be a good story. It had to be worth telling. Of course, there are miscarriages and the death of infants and children and friends and relatives and parents. That was happening all the time, but it was only when it was really, there was an important teaching around it that it was passed on. So we don't actually have recorded a lot of the Buddhas, like a lot of the times he was just there for somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's actually where I was going to go in terms of not necessarily from Buddhists, but from somebody who has had experiences of loss and being with people, and also worked with people who had a lot of experiences with loss. Is basically, this is a good lesson for you to learn how to be somebody who is there for a person who's going through a loss, right? And one of the most important things to do is don't try to think of something kind of beautiful or smart to say or something like that, because you don't know the mindset of the person. You don't know how they're going to accept it. What I would suggest in this case is to make sure that your friend knows that you are there for her, right? If she needs anybody to talk to cry a shoulder on, whatever, right? You just make sure she's very clearly knows that you are there for her, and check in with her every once in a while, right? I don't know how often you see this person, but maybe a phone call or something, not to like overly do it, right? You're not just, oh, how are you doing today? How are you feeling for not like that, but just to kind of make sure that you're around, right? Because it's very common for people who have losses to kind of end up being a little bit separated from people around them, right? And they can feel kind of isolated, right? So, but you don't want to do that. You want to be there for that person, but in a very skillful and wise way so that they can understand that you are there for them, you're supporting them. And if they need you, right, if they need to be able to cry to you or to talk to you, just so that you can lend an ear to listen, then you can be that person. So that would be my suggestion in terms of this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you're trying to go to the suttas to find that kind of advice, it would actually be pretty hard, because that was happening. It was interwoven. The Buddha, when he was talking about compassion, when he was talking about being a good friend, that's what he was talking about. So the Dhamma is not something that should short circuit the basic human, emotional, social qualities that we've already been cultivating our whole lives. The things that we took to be wisdom and good, just the qualities of a good heart before we encountered Buddhism were actually, wise qualities, good qualities, and continue to be even once we learn the Dhamma. So the Dhamma helps us shape it towards a goal that is freedom from suffering, but it doesn't change the qualities themselves. So compassion, being supportive, listening, and in some ways, the Dhamma teachings about impermanence or having loved ones as a condition for suffering are not going to land really well if you start pulling them out in a situation like this. They're the kind of things that you study sort of as we were talking on Sunday. They're the sort of things that you study before these events happen. But when these events happen, you don't really be like, yeah, this is impermanence. I told you. Everybody you love is going to die. See, it's just like the Buddha said. No, in these times, it's more like, like the first noble truth. Like, okay, no, your suffering is real. And so when there is real suffering, the task for the first noble truth is to learn to know it and to learn to be with it. And so you get to cultivate that, and you don't even need to look in a manual. You only get to develop the first noble truth by being a human being and by not running away from suffering. So just be there, and you might actually be able to consider that this person, having had the miscarriage, is probably going to be a better teacher than the books in this respect.
All right. So topic request, setting aside financial greed.
Give it money. It's miserable.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important to understand is to set, when it comes to money, your goals should simply be, right? If you're trying to set aside financial greed, your goals should simply be, what do I need so that I could have a good life for myself and my family, right? Think about it in that way, right? If you think about, well, if I make X more, it'll be this much better, right? If you're following that kind of treadmill, then you're never gonna find happiness. Money's never gonna be enough, right? You could have $1 billion and it won't be enough, right? So, but if you reflect, and even there's like studies that show like below a certain yearly threshold of how much you make money, it affects people's happiness, right? Up to a certain point. And then it doesn't matter from that point, like how much more money you have, your happiness doesn't get greater dependent on the money. So basically what this study's showing is like, if you don't have enough money to survive in a comfortable way, then it's going to be very unhappy, very unpleasant. But once you reach a certain threshold, and it was like basically like middle class level, once you go past that, the extra money does not give you more happiness, right? So that's what to reflect on, right? Maybe you want, your children to, and your family to be financially secure, right? And you want to live a good life. And, people have different tastes, like some people are okay with something much more simpler and more rustic, and other people need a bit more of the, the Buddhist says the 5 chords of sensual pleasures, a bit more of the technology and more modern, a little bit more expensive things, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. For a lay person. But what you want to make sure is that you keep that goal in mind of, why you're doing what you're doing, right? For yourself, for your skills, for your financial security, for your family's financial security, for your family's general wealth and health and happiness and things like that. And so when you reflect on it in that way, instead of worrying, then you won't worry so much about financial greed, right? And then you can reflect on things like, and when you meet people who are like kind of like high-powered people, right? Who like Wall Street or lawyers or whatever, they work a lot, right? And they might have this feeling of, I need to work so I can support my family. But then there's always the balance of like, if I'm never there for my family, is letting them have a bit better of a lifestyle worth it for my absence? Does that replace my absence? Right? That's something that you have to think about, right? So then maybe you live a little bit less on the hog, but your family is closer together, right? So reflect on these skillful reasons. Right? There's nothing inherently evil with money or with, material gains. Right? There's nothing inherently bad about them. It's your relationship with them, your goals and how you use them mindfully or unmindfully that makes a difference. Anything?
Yeah, no, totally. It's I'd say the main advice I've given to people, you can't win with money. So the best way to kind of step past financial greed or the greed for money is just set it aside. And instead, just like Bhante said, ask, what do I need? And this is how monks live our lives. The Buddha asked us to set aside money completely. We're not allowed to touch it. And instead, we deal with what are called the 4 requisites: food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. And when you look at it that way, it's very easy to reach a point of having enough. And just like Bhante said, and then you're happy. This happiness is really a function of the resolution of suffering. Like to the degree that you're free of like overt lack, you're about as happy as you're going to get in terms of having stuff. And so you just look at money, you never get that experience. Money is like drinking salt water. You just get thirstier and thirstier and thirstier. You never could reach a point where you feel like you have enough money unless you stop thinking about money. When you just think about what your needs, and once your needs are met, then you probably have enough money.
Yeah. And then, that Ajahn Brahm says it best, there's poor people suffering and there's rich people suffering, right? So like I can remember from a young age thinking about like, people say like, oh, I wish I was like Brad Pitt or this or that. And I really, actually, no, that kind of sucks. Like they can't just go to the store when they want, like everybody's bothering them all the time. You don't know if people want to be with you for your money or for who you are. Like that's kind of that doesn't sound very pleasant to me. So like I've always had that kind of mindset of seeing that there's drawbacks to having a lot of money and a lot of fame as well. Sometimes anonymity is actually a very pleasant thing. So if you reflect on these drawbacks of financial greed, then you can live happily and with balance. Thank you, Sierra, for taking up Chris's and Reed's reins of reminding people to like the video. I really do think that those likes, because I've been looking into YouTube, and like things like likes actually make a huge difference in like when the algorithm shows videos to people. So if you guys do the likes, it actually will allow more people to come. I mean, we have 18 people. That's a record for a long time. Hasn't been this high since maybe when I first started doing these at the beginning of the year. So it's very good.
And hello to Aiden. We just met the other day.
We did?
I did online.
Oh, okay. On your stream. Okay. So, and Adriana's thanking her. Yes, thank you. So Aiden has a question. If you were alone on an island for an entire year, sort of like COVID lockdown, what sutta would you want to have with you? Something you could reread, yet glean insights each time you want to read it.
I would take Digha Nikaya number 2, the Samyutta Sutta, which is a pretty stock, straightforward sutta in a lot of ways. It contains the gradual training, fully expanded. And I would just be able to go through it. It also has a lot of, it looks into several different kinds of wrong views. So I'd get to spend the entire year like saying, do I still have like wrong views? Like in terms of like my approach to kama or karma, or like the nature of the universe, or the efficacy of good and bad deeds. That'd be a very wonderful year of study.
That's actually a good one. That wasn't the one that came to my mind first, but actually I'm thinking, maybe that might be a better one.
What was your first thought?
Mahasatipatthana Sutta for me. Mahasatipatthana Sutta. If I had to choose one, that's it. Because that's if you practice that way, that helps you go to awakening. So that for me, that if I had to choose one, now the better question is, if you had to, if the world ended and you could only wander with one book of the Nikayas, which one would it be? What do you think?
The Majjhima.
Majjhima Nikaya. For me, it would be the Samyutta Nikaya. I saw that Bhante mentioned it has been helpful. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Okay, a spice. Oh boy, we have a person who wants us to explain a whole sutta. The sutta, the lesser sutta on emptiness in the Majjhima Nikaya.
I don't have the topic memorized.
Yeah, we could pick it up on the Sutta Central real quick.
Yeah.
Sutta middle. Oh no, not that one. Oh, come on.
But do you know which one it is?
Yeah, I think it's in the 130s or 140s. It's towards the end. Sunyatavagga. There it is. Shorter discourse on emptiness. But it's not that short because it's in the Majjhima Nikaya. Let's see. Okay. So the Buddha asked Ananda, Ananda asked the Buddha what he's dwelling in, and he says, I practice the meditation on emptiness. There is. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, yeah.
There is only this that is not emptiness, namely the oneness dependent on the mendicant sangha.
Yeah, I think suffice to say, we would need to read the sutta.
Yeah,
before we really commented on it.
Yeah.
I can tell you, it's not the kind of sutta that everybody knows offhand, even in monastic circles. So yeah, we'd need to read it and really contemplate it.
Maybe I'll keep it here, and maybe next week we can get to it. That might be a good sutta to read for next week.
But in general, it starts out where Ananda is going to the Buddha and saying, I heard that the Buddha frequently dwells in the experience of emptiness, the attainment of emptiness, the meditation on emptiness. And did I hear that correctly? And the Buddha says yes. And then he goes to explain it. So it's pointing to the fact that a fully enlightened Buddha is capable of dwelling in this attainment. Now, in the Theravada, that's kind of the standpoint about emptiness. Like emptiness is an extremely subtle thing, and it's a meditative attainment that has to be, it's cultivated, and greed, hatred, and delusion have to be kind of like set aside, or anything you think is emptiness isn't really emptiness. You're just deluding yourself. So that would be the Theravada standpoint. So if you sit down to talk about it, you're not talking about something like just crossing your eyes and being able to see between the objects in the room and be like, oh yeah, I perceive emptiness. No, it's something that you should sit down and really develop like a meditative state first and say, like, let me assume this is something extremely subtle. This is going beyond the distinctions of objects, of form, of perception and feeling. And then you're getting closer to like understanding the profundity of what the Buddha is trying to explain, which is why, we shouldn't just dive right into it offhand without a little study.
So Brandon says, are all conditioned things dukkha? Now, Brandon, you would have found out if you came to my morning monastery experience sessions every morning at 8:00. We went over this yesterday. Today, we found that the Buddha told us that all dhammas are anatta. So yes, of course, all conditioned things are dukkha. Why? Not because there's some kind of inherent dukkha-ness in these things. It is because we grasp onto them. Because something is impermanent, unstable, undependable, we hold on to it thinking it's not going to be that way because we're deluded. And then when it breaks apart and falls through our fingers, we suffer. We have created dukkha. This is why the Buddha tells us that we literally create our own suffering. By attaching and expecting something to be otherwise than it is, we create our own suffering. So yes, anything in existence, anything that is sankhara, that is conditioned, which is everything except for nibbana, anything until you have your final extinguishment, then anything is dukkha that you would attach to, that you would cling to, that you would expect to stay, because it's not going to. It's going to go the way, the way of entropy. It's going to go the way of the nature, right? The Buddha says whether a Buddha arises in the world or not, there are these fixed laws of Dhamma. All conditions are impermanent. All conditions are suffering, and all dhammas are not self. So, and these are to be understood, to be seen, right? This is part of what seeing with Vipassana means, to see the three characteristics of existence, to see these things. And so these are to be seen so that you can free yourself from samsara. Bhante? All right. Don is saying thank you. You're welcome, Don.
Adriana says, no family or wealth here, but still good reflections.
I thought you talk about your big Latin family all the time, Adriana. Mostly how they drive you nuts, but still. All right. James is being disappointed with Dhamma teachers. Neither of us. Well, that's good. Don't worry. Stick around. Everything's impermanent. You'll be disappointed in me for something.
We are conditioned. We are therefore suffering as well. Don't get attached. But yeah.
Recently was told again that my meditation theme isn't going to lead to Nibbana ever. They are the 6 recollections. Well, this is
who's telling you this, but
Victor, who's an Indonesian gentleman, who supports us. He's part of the community here. And I remember him coming to me like maybe a month ago. And he's like, Bante, I says, this person keeps telling me that, following the Noble Eightfold Path is not this and that and this. And I said, well, why are you listening to them? Right? Like, Victor is somebody who knows he's a good practitioner. He knows the Dhamma for a regular lay person. Very good. So I said, what are you listening to this person for? I mean, this person wasn't a monk at this point. But still, it's like, if you know something from the suttas and you're practicing and it's working well, then, what are people going to say? This is why, James, you've been around me for a couple of years now on the Discord Sangha, how I tell you, 5 different, very senior, very monk, 5 different monastics who people can say they're all arahants, right? Whether they are or not, who knows? But you pick one topic and they're going to say 5 different things, aren't they? Right? There's going to be a core of things that are going to be the same because they're the core. But then one is going to say this and one is going to say that, and you don't know what's right. Right? And so what I've done and what I tell everybody else to do is you practice and see what works. Right? If a monk says this is, or if a teacher says this is what you should do, and you say, well, okay, let me give it a shot. And you give it a shot and you say, no, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to do it. Or you give it a shot and you say, oh, this worked out well and I'm going to do it. Right? So don't just because one person says something, or even maybe a couple, you should investigate that. Well, maybe they're saying, especially if they're saying the same thing, maybe there's something I'm missing. But otherwise, you're just going to go in circles. Otherwise, you just practice, do what you know to be beneficial and what works for you, and not worry too much about what a bunch of other people say.
Yeah, a teaching of the Force Master Ajahn Chah, he would tell his students, my na, and na means certain, and my means not. So that was his teaching. It's not certain. It's not for sure. It's not for sure. He's teaching people how to attain stream entry, which is the unerring, destination is Nibbana. And it's to say about everything, well, not for sure. Not for sure. That's how you cultivate a mind of impermanence and of letting go. So, if somebody tells you your meditation topic is not going to lead to Nibbana, I don't know. You don't know. You won't know till you get to Nibbana whether or not your meditation topic led you there. So just say, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know for sure. And that's a profound place of letting go, of just being relaxed about the whole thing. They've got suffering because they're certain about something. And then, which is actually not a pleasant state. It's a very rigid state. So instead, you can just say, yeah, I don't know. And then practice the 6 recollections, because they make your mind bright. They fulfill the factors of enlightenment. And yeah, who knows? Maybe they will lead to Nibbana, or maybe they won't lead to Nibbana. But if they create all the conditions for Nibbana in the here and now, I think we all know what the probability is they're going to ripen in.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there's a lot of chat. I'm glad everybody's talking to each other.
Oh, wow.
Been a downtrodden day. Well, that's a Nietzsche as well, isn't it? Right? You wake up every day and you don't know, are you going to be tired?
Monastic.
Are you?
I had a good day. It'll change. I had a bad day. It'll change.
This too shall that Ajahn Brahm back in, this is talking about 2007, 2008. Him telling the story about the emperor, like with the ring, this too shall pass. That was so powerful for me. And actually, my mom actually has a ring that says this too shall pass now, And so that's a good reminder. It's if it is it good, it'll pass. Is it bad? It'll pass. Or like Ajahn Chah would say, is it good? Uncertain. Is it bad? Uncertain. All right. Thank you. Aiden says, okay, thank you.
Say the sutta names again slowly. Well, you can look up Digha Nikaya number 2, and that is the Samanyapala Sutta. It's called the Fruits of Recluseship. But DN2 will help you find it online. And in terms of the Mahasatipatthana, I think it's
22?
I thought it was 16. DN
16?
16?
Maybe. I don't know. It's been such a long time. Yeah, if you go to
we're learning too. It's always great to refresh one's memory about these things. Okay. Well, I think it's going to be in that second.
Ah, 22.
There you go.
Bam. All right, I got it. Okay. GJM. I think that's Bella and Gautam, maybe. So hello, Bella and Gautam. Oh, yeah, there it is. Gautam from. All right.
Hello.
All right, just going through here. James is saying, thanks. I'm dealing with a lot, and my Dhamma is not strong. I'm keeping the 5 precepts and speech discipline. So, yeah, this is the practice is never easy. And sometimes it's harder than others, right? We go through times where sometimes, just sitting for 4 minutes is a win, because you have to struggle just to sit for a couple of minutes. Right? You have to struggle just to practice, because there's so much aversion, so much negativity, so much aversion towards doing the practice in your mind. It's the way it goes.
Yeah, and it's important to start to develop an appreciation of conditions rather than states. So states are impermanent. They come and they go. You can, in this very one moment, have the most beautiful, spacious, defilement-free mind. And that does not mean you're on the verge of enlightenment if you don't have the conditions for enlightenment. Because in the very next moment that could change, and somebody could say, well, look at you all proud of yourself, and it makes you angry, and you just go off on a tangent and you spend the rest of your life in the hell of anger. So instead of cultivating states and identifying that, we try to cultivate the conditions. So what you're doing by practicing, even when the conditions are difficult, is cultivating the conditions that ripen in good mind states. And it might be a challenge while you're doing that. But the thing is, the more you do it, the more you've got those conditions in place. You've got the good mind states. It's just a matter of time until they kind of line up, and then you'll have you'll have a really powerful mind, free of defilements, free of the dukkha that you're going through. You won't be able to be shaken by the world then. So keep up the cultivating the good conditions. That's really what's at the heart of what we're all trying to do, wherever we're starting from.
Mm-hmm. James is saying, when a family member breaks off from you over something silly, you're left depressed. Mm-hmm. This is the world has been increasingly, well, not the world, but the country has become increasingly divided over the last 10 to 15 years. And it's just ramped up. And to the point I never thought I'd see in my life where family members disown each other over really silly things. And this is, unfortunately, this is the nature of samsara, isn't it? Right? This is the nature of society. And you have no control over what they do, right? You only have control over your own suffering, over your own actions. right? So like you said, I've tried to recollect the person is not self. Right? That might not be the best. Maybe recollect that you're not self, right? So that there's nothing, so that whatever suffering arises, oh, this is not mine. This is not me, right? And have lots and practice lots of metta for yourself and for this person, and just accept that this is what has happened, and there's not much you can do. You can just remain open for that person to want to come back into your life again, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the chat just jumped. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, again, with losing somebody, again, it's conditions. You can't necessarily get them back. You can't necessarily fix the divide. But in some ways, that's out of your control. You don't know how it's going to turn out. It's just the conditions. Try to find a place of goodwill or letting go or compassion for the person. At the very least, the Buddha says, this is a sutta on 5 ways of relinquishing a grudge. The 5th one is just to cultivate, equanimity, or I think that's 4. The 5th one is to just put them out of your mind. Sometimes you just need to walk on and distract yourself, and when your mind simmers down a bit, then you can return to, oh yeah, what a bummer.
James is saying, yeah, they always argue. They're talking about teachers, I guess. Even the 500 arahants at the first council darn near fought. Well, I don't know if they fought per se, but they probably had vigorous debate.
Yeah, with the Tibetan, go on, refute that if you can.
Go off and rescue your thesis. Yeah.
No, from the arahants I've heard of, they tend to speak their minds when, they're really confident about something. And that's the funny thing about being a human being is if you see something, then you can say, I'm confident about that because you saw it. But somebody else is sitting in a different seat. And so they're seeing something different. You're both looking at the same object and you can both be confident about something, but the thing that you say I'm confident in is actually different. Yeah. And it's a real skill to know that from the get-go and not start an argument over it.
Yeah. Well, one of my insights was realizing how unreliable our perception is. Right. And I can remember having this insight smack me in the face one day and realize any 2 people that are together with a conversation, come together to talk, if you were able to really look at their minds and see what they're perceiving, they're actually in many ways having 2 separate talks, right? Their perceptions are not aligned per se into exactly what they're doing and why. It's a very interesting insight into that. Now, this is, I deem, the best comment of the night so far. True, I admit I have been disappointed with Bhante J. Good job. But I am also aware that I have high expectations. Very good. If I have disappointed you to make you realize that expectations equal suffering, then I'm doing my job. So I am not disappointed in myself then. Very good. It's good to be disappointed because I can look within to the cause and conditions. Yes. Yep. Very good. This is what I say. Do you know? I say, who do you think are the monks that I really look up to the most? And people will say, Bhante Ji, Ajahn Brahm, Ajahn Chah. And I say, no, all the ones that have been dead for 2,600 years. No living ones, right? Because the ones who are arhats, who are gone, they can't disappoint you. Mahakassapa, Mohamogalana, Sariputta, right? So those are the ones I really look up to the most. Of course, I look up to living senior monastics as well, but they can, they're just people too, right? I can't say, I don't think I've ever actually met an arhat, but I'm a patujana, so I wouldn't know. I'm not an arhat myself.
Right now.
So very good. I'm very happy that somebody says that they've been disappointed by me, because and this is not to say anything, this is not to toot my own horn, but I very rarely get negative feedback, and I'm always looking for it. So I appreciate that. And so I would like, if you're not joking, I actually would kind of like to know, maybe send me a message as to what disappointed you so I could know, maybe do better. So thank you. Bhante, could you elaborate how you practice Satipatthana? Follow the instructions. The sutta tells you exactly what to do, right? So the way I look at Satipatthana is like a toolbox, right? Imagine you have, if you ever had a toolbox, right? You take it around with you, and then you open it up, and then there's different like levels and different things, and and so Satipatthana, the sutta, right, is essentially a toolbox for investigating your experience. That's what it is, right? And you can't, there's so much in there, you're not going to do it. Like, I'm going to do every single thing of all the Satipatthanas every day. That doesn't exist. That's not how it works. You couldn't do it all in one day, right? But when you practice mindfulness, when you develop a keen sense of mindfulness and understanding and evaluation, you develop it as a skill, then you will see opportunities. Okay, this is perfect for this tool, right? I'll give you an example. Like when I went skydiving way back, I don't know when, this may be like 9 years ago, right? And I'm in the plane, right? I had learned how to fly when I was young, and I wasn't afraid at all of skydiving because I was excited so much. But still, I practiced mindfulness of death. I said, okay, I'm going to break out this tool. And as the plane is ascending up to 10,000 feet, I'm like, I might die, right? So this is what this is, the Satipatthana. It's a toolbox to investigate your experience, right? What is this body, right? You investigate it through the four elements. You investigate it through Anapanasati, through the charnel ground, through the Asuppa practice. Like, what is this mind? Right? What are the tone, the general tone, and the states of your mind, etc. It's pointing you towards that's what Satipatthana means: a ground, a base, an establishment of mindfulness, where you develop your mindfulness and where you can put your mindfulness at, right? So if you study Satipatthana Sutta and you know the framework enough in your mind, then that's a toolbox you carry around with you wherever you go. And when an opportunity arises, you practice it, right? When you're at your desk at work or waiting online somewhere, or in traffic or whatever, you look at your mind, right? And look how the interplay between your mind and your body. Now, some teachers will say, they'll say like, okay, no, for now you just practice one. So today I'm going to practice Vedananupasi. So investigating feeling is feeling, and I'm just going to focus on that, right? Or I'm going to just focus on the body today, or just focus on the mind, right? Or just focus on principles, Dhamma, right? And that's okay. That's good training in the beginning, but what you really do when you really practice Satipatthana and it becomes a valuable tool for you, you actually see how all of the Satipatthanas are intermingling in any experience, right? You actually see how some kind of feeling affects the general tone of your mind, which affects the thoughts that arise, which affects the impulses. You see all of these things because they're all together. They're all working. And so all of these different aspects allow you to investigate this, right? So the way, if you want to start out, I always say to start out with 1 in 59. So practice the last minute of every hour throughout your day, stopping and either following your breath or observing your body, whatever you want to do. Develop that, and that actually builds the skill of investigation, of taking time to look what's going on in your mind and body and how that's affecting and being affected by your experience. Okay. Oh. Do you want to get this one, Bante? How should I deal with family members who push back and argue with me? Oh, chat just jumped again. At this point, they're obstinate against working with me.
Yeah, you can't control them. Yeah, you're not trying to figure out how to deal with them. Ultimately, you're trying to figure out how to deal with your emotions around it. So that's where you focus on. Try to find the right breathing room so that you can really, it's satipatthana, it's being aware of what's going on in terms of feeling and in terms of mental states, so that you know when you should be careful, when you're about to act out of anger or frustration, annoyance, confusion, doubt. So in those points, when you know those states are there, you really kind of scale back your attempts, because anything you do is going to complicate things. But when you know that you're not acting out of greed, hatred, and delusion, when it's like, no, actually, okay, no, I stepped back, I got some breathing room, feeling kind of relaxed. I hear what they're saying, how can I just convey to them that I'm not trying to get in an argument here? In those moments, you do your best. So yeah, I mean, work with what's going on for you, and again, that's setting the right conditions for some sort of, not necessarily resolution, but at least less suffering around it. Because that's what we're going for. You can't make the other people agree with you or work with you or anything. So you just set that aside and try and bring your best qualities into every interaction, and it'll be what it'll be.
All right. James is giving us the numbers for Satipatthana. Very good. Rupa, hello, Rupa. How you doing? And Rupa has retracted her whatever the message was. All right. We've uplifted James's mood. Very good. That too shall pass. See, this is the thing. James is a experienced practitioner, so you can do that kind of stuff with him. It's like the story of Ajahn Chah going to Ajahn Brahm when he's sick with malaria, and he just goes and visits him, and he walks in and he says, Brahmavamso, you'll either get better or you'll die. And then he walks out, right? You can do that kind of stuff with practitioners who understand. You can't do it. It seems very, very heartless with people who aren't practitioners. So, all right. Jason, hey, Jason. Would the Brahma Viharas be something to lean into for difficult family members, internally and externally? I mentioned that for James to practice lots of, these. Well, so it works out well, right? So you have metta, you have goodwill for yourself and for the other people. You have compassion for yourself and the other people to practice this. You have mudita, so you have appreciative joy, right? They're doing good. Don't allow like resentment towards them because maybe they said something you don't like or they don't like you or whatever. And then, if something good happens to them, you're like, oh, they don't deserve this, right? So you have appreciative joy, and then you have equanimity, right? Let them do what they're going to do. I don't need to suffer for this. I don't need to like or dislike it. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm equanimous, and I wish them well. Anything, Bhante?
No, that's what I said. Brahma Viharas.
Eli is saying, can we read DN 27? Wow, we have people wanting us to do all kinds of major suttas. We don't have enough time for that. But keeping it as an idea. Maybe we can go through it.
Go on.
I also I also do have a Saturday session on Second Life that I do, and I often read. Like I'll take multiple Saturdays to read through a sutta, so that might be good for that as well. Have we really caught up to the chat? Wow. Rupa's sick.
Yeah. If you go look on the Resident of Dhamma YouTube channel, you'll find the talk that was given yesterday on sickness and health.
Yeah.
So I was sick last week. It's kind of like, it's a very in vogue topic at the moment, and there's a lot to think about. Yeah, you can also look on the upavana.org page, and you'll see a link to that if you can't find it.
All right. Well, I think that this is a natural kind of weaning off, and I think it's a natural good time to do our guided meditation. Right. So every Dhammapalooza, we try to have a little bit of everything. Right. So we had some chanting. Right. We didn't have some reading because there was a lot of questions, which is okay. Right. Each Dhammapalooza is going to be a little different in that regard because it's going to be depending on you guys. So I think it's a good time to do our guided meditation. Aiden says, Ram Dass said, if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family. Yeah, there's a wonderful little cartoon that I love it's like this Buddhist monk or whatever, and the master says, your training is nearly complete. You only have one more test. And then it shows him like at the dinner table with his family, right? For like Thanksgiving or something like that. That's a funny one. All right, friends, let's do some meditation. Okay, so take some time to put yourself in a position, in a posture that is most comfortable and stable for you. And it's good when we sit down for a period of time to take some time scanning through the body. There's two reasons for this. One, it helps us transition from the external, like the chat room and the talking and all of what's going on around us, to the internal, focusing on what's going on in this mind and body. And secondly, it allows us to check and see that our body is set up in a comfortable and stable position. It's better to take some extra time before you start to sit and making sure that your body is set up in this way so that when you begin your mindfulness of breathing or whatever object, you don't have to worry about your body. It's comfortable, stable, and parked. So begin by bringing your awareness to your feet. By bringing awareness, this means that try to get in touch with whatever sensations you have in that part of the body. So you can wiggle your toes if you're having trouble. You can try to tune into the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor or a mat. And as we scan up through the body, we want to try to find these sensations in each part. The reason we do this is so that we can notice any small imbalances of our posture or small pains. Because something small now turns into something much larger later on. If you really investigate your posture, you'll save yourself lots of pain and suffering later. Bring your awareness up through the ankles to the calves. What is the feeling of the calves pressing against the cushion? Bring your awareness to the knees. Up through to the thighs. What is the feeling of the thighs pressing against the chair or the cushion? And then to the hips and pelvis. If you're sitting on a cushion, check to make sure your buttocks is evenly distributed on it, to make sure the balance is even. The position of your pelvic area has an impact on the balance of your upper body. So check to see that it's positioned in a way that is not causing your upper body to lean or slouch. And when you're ready with your lower body, bring your awareness up through the abdomen and the chest. Check again that your spine and upper body are resting in its neutral, natural position, comfortably on top of the lower body. When you set your body up in a stable and comfortable way, it will naturally, without any strain, stay in its stable posture. Bring your awareness up to the shoulders. Make sure your shoulders are hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Move down through the elbows to the hands. Check to see that the elbows and hands are in a comfortable position that supports your posture. Doesn't cause the upper body to lean or slouch. And finally, bring your awareness to your head. Check to see that it's resting comfortably on the upper body, not leaning or slouching. With the chin parallel to the floor. Once you've set your body up in a stable and comfortable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. Your body has been breathing from the second you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job from here on in is to simply observe and investigate the breath, to stay with it. Watch as this body breathes in and this body breathes out. Friends, we come to our meditation with many responsibilities, worries, and burdens. Family and friends, work and school. Thoughts about the past, worries about the future. All kinds of things that will seek to come to our mind as we practice. For the time of this meditation, practice laying down our burdens, letting go and follow the breath. Just as the mighty Atlas holds the world on his shoulders, so too do we each hold our world on our shoulders, a heavy burden. Lay your world down and follow the breath. As you follow your breath, your mind will get distracted. It will want to go to the past or the future, the other side of the world or the universe. And you will be distracted away from your breath. This is normal. You did not do anything wrong or fail as a meditator. This is simply the mind showing you how it works, showing you its craving. Whenever you get distracted away, first acknowledge that you've been distracted. Practice letting go of the distraction, and then return home to the breath. The breath is home. It's always there waiting for us, whether we pay attention to it or not. It's always available when we seek it. So however many times you get distracted, acknowledge, let go, and return over and over again. By letting go, we mean that we don't want to try to push away the distractions and get agitated, nor do we want to get enraptured in them and keep thinking about them more and more. We simply want to let them be, give them no energy. Let them go as they came, all while following the breath. Every once in a while, check in with the state of your mind. Is your mind becoming more calm, tranquil, or not? As your mind becomes more calm and tranquil, as you're able to stay longer on the breath, you may begin to notice further characteristics of the breath. Sometimes the breath is long and deep, sometimes short and shallow. Bring your focus to investigate all of these characteristics of the breath, how it changes. Try to see the breath even more deeply than before. Okay, friends. Slowly begin to open your eyes. Come out of the meditation. Bringing your awareness slowly back to the external, the chat room, the room that you're in. And check in with the state of your mind one last time. Can you compare the state of your mind now compared to how it was when we first started the meditation? Check and see the difference. Okay, friends. So we have 25 minutes left in Dhammapalooza. If you have any questions or comments or things to talk about, you can type them in the chat. While that's happening, we can read through more of the Samyutta Nikaya. These are just short verses that we've been reading through, kind of like as a way to chill out in the last 10, 15 minutes of Dhammapalooza. But if you have a comment or question, very good. Adriana, how many people did we lose? We've noticed that there's always a large drop off while we do our guided meditation, and it could be for a variety of reasons. But we lost a good chunk of people. Could be the time, could be they fell asleep during the meditation. Who knows? But yeah. All right. So let's do some, where is it? Number 41, Ablaze. And I'll put the, for those who want to follow along, I'll put the link there. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi and Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then when the night had advanced, a certain Devata of stunning beauty, illuminating the entire Jeta's Grove, approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, stood to one side, reciting these verses in the presence of the Blessed One. That introduction sounds awfully familiar, right? Mm-hmm. Very, very similar to the one that for the Mangala Sutta, the Blessing Sutta. So these verses typically are what I call Dhamma rap battles. So what happens is a deva or multiple devas sometimes comes down from the heavens, and then they say a verse, and then Buddha counters it with his own verse. So let's see. Sometimes that's not always the case, but that's the typical way this is set up. So the Deva says, when one's house is ablaze, the vessel taken out is the one that is useful, not the one left burnt inside. So when the world is ablaze with the fires of aging and death, one should take out one's wealth by giving. What is given is well salvaged. What is given yields pleasant fruit. But not so what is not given. Thieves take it away, or kings. It gets burnt by fire or lost. Then in the end, one leaves the body along with one's possessions. Having understood this, the wise person should enjoy himself, but also give. Having given and enjoyed as fits his means, blameless he goes to the heavenly state. So this Deva is saying here, and the Buddha doesn't respond. So the Buddha must have just consented with his silence and approval of this. So just as if your house is on fire, you run out with what's most important. So too, this Deva is saying, with all of the things that you own, what is given is the thing that is the most salvaged. Why? Because you can't take your material items with you, but the good karma the good merit that you've developed by practicing generosity is helps you in future lives. So this is what is being said here, right? What is given yields pleasant fruit, but not what is not given. So when all your items, thieves can come, the kings can say, this is my stuff now. It can be burnt in a fire. And you can't take your items with you. Only what you have done, only your karma.
In some ways, it's very similar to the message in the Mangala Sutta, in the highest blessing. It's like all the highest blessings, they're good karma.
Yeah.
Good things that you cultivate, you take with you, and that leave you in a blessed state.
All right. The next one, number 42. If you are following along, you scroll down to the bottom, and in the bottom right, you'll see next, and then the name. So you just click on that, and it brings you to the next one. Giving what? A devata. So a devata, this one, they don't talk about the devatas coming down. There's just a devata, and a devata is making a statement. Giving what does one give strength? Giving what does one give beauty? Giving what does one give ease? Giving what does one give sight? Who is the giver of all? Being asked, please explain this to me. And the Buddha responds, giving food, one gives strength. Giving clothes, one gives beauty. Giving a vehicle, one gives ease. Giving a lamp, one gives sight. The one who gives a residence is the giver of all. Right? So the Buddha has responded to the questions, and then he adds one more thing. But the one who teaches the Dhamma is the giver of the deathless. The highest gift, the giver of the knowledge to become awakened. (43) Food. And there's no setup to this. It's simply just statements. They always take delight in food, both devas and human beings. So what sort of spirit could it be that does not take delight in food? When they give out of faith with a heart of confidence, food accrues to the giver himself, both in this world and the next. Therefore, having removed stinginess, the conqueror of the stain should give a gift. Merits are the support for living beings when they arise in the other world. (44) One root. This is just one paragraph. A devata. The seer has crossed over the abyss with its one root, 2 whirlpools, 3 stains, 5 extensions, an ocean, and 12 eddies. And no explanation.
I would occasionally just kind of speak in riddles.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think, sometimes you've seen these in other places and you know, okay, this is what is being talked about here. But this one, no idea. It's a good question. You could say maybe the one root is craving. Right? What are the 2 whirlpools? I don't know. This is very interesting. 12 entities, probably the 12 fetters. Right? No, that's 10 fetters. Yeah, never mind.
12 links independent
12 links.
origination.
12 links. Yeah. So we're just trying to make educated guesses. Probably not even worth it. 45. Perfect. A devata. Behold him of perfect name, the seer of the subtle goal, a giver of wisdom unattached to the lair of sensual pleasures. Behold the wise one, all-knowing, the great seer treading the noble path. (46) Nymphs. What do we have here?
Jason, your question, I've been wondering if suttas like 42 are a continuation from 41. Yeah, some of the collections are very sparse in terms of narrative or structure. All they were preserving was a couple of phrases, and it's really hard to tell. So when even the Arahants later, as all this stuff is being recited and it's just kind of being put categorically so they can remember it, in like the Diga or the Majjhima, the long discourses, the middle discourses, they made a lot of effort so that you knew time and place and context. But with the Samyutta, there is bare bones. So your guess is as good as ours, actually.
Well, what I would say in terms of this is, don't forget, as Bhante said, Samyutta means is like a clumping together. So all of the topics are put together. So it's not a surprise that there would be just a ton of verses just on Dana all together in one grouping. So Adriana says a vehicle. Yeah. Like a cart pulled by a horse or an ox or something like that. Giving a vehicle.
Or even giving a ride in a vehicle. So you can see, like, giving a lamp, that doesn't necessarily mean you're like, hey, here's my lamp. Because what's a monk going to do with a lamp during the daytime? It could just be like helping somebody along in the dark of night.
Oh, like is the phrase, a David to that Lex, and he set up just an abridgment. So this goes into some deep stuff. There are those monastic scholars and lay scholars who make some pretty strong claims that the Samyutta Nikaya is the oldest of all of the books, right? So it's like literally the first. And one of the reasons why they say this is because of this lack of embellishment, right? Some scholars will say that, like thus have I heard, I was dwelling at Savatthi, such and such. Some scholars have put forth the claim that these are later additions, right? But in the Samyutta Nikaya, you kind of see like this ancient proto thing going on here, where it's just here it is, boom, right? So it's just like, here's the Dhamma, like here's the most important thing to remember, right? The Buddha was at Savatthi this time, who was at Kepalavatu that time. That's nice to know, but it's not really the most important thing. Most important thing is what the Dhamma that's being expressed, right? So, and this is why, actually, personally, this is one of the reasons I love the Samyutta Nikaya, because of this, because all of these suttas are very short, straight, to the point, not a lot of extra stuff. Of course, sometimes you wish that you had a bit more explanation, but, that's the way it is. All right. Where are we here? Nymphs. Resounding with a host of nymphs, haunted by a host of demons, this grove is to be called deluding. How does one escape from it? The straight way, that path is called, and fearless is called its destination. The chariot is called unrattling, fitted with wheels of wholesome states. The sense of shame is its leaning board. Mindfulness is its upholstery. I call the Dhamma the charioteer, with right view running out in front. One who has such a vehicle, whether a woman or a man, has by means of this vehicle drawn close to Nibbana. If you have the Bhavana Vandana, then you can see this called the Nymphs verses in the Bhavana Vandana. Planters of groves. For whom does merit always increase, both by day and by night? Who are the people going to heaven, established in Dhamma, endowed with virtue? Those who set up a park or a grove, the people who construct a bridge, a place to drink and a well, those who give a residence. For them merit always increases, both by day and by night. Those are the people going to heaven, established in Dhamma, endowed with virtue. And not a coincidence that the next one is Jeta's Grove. All right. So the last one, they're talking about giving land, right? And really what it's talking about is giving land to the monastics, giving a place. Like that's really what it's kind of leaning towards, right? Those who set up a park or a grove or construct a bridge, a place to drink and a well, those who give residence, right? Who are you giving residence to in this regard? You're giving residence to ascetics, those who are going to be in that grove. So next is Jeta's Grove, the Devata Anathapindika. Now, this is Anathapindika, who we know as the foremost, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Not giver, the foremost supporter of the Sangha, right? Was a layperson, and I think he was maybe either did he end up being either a once or a non-returner? I don't know, one of them.
I think he was just a stream enter.
Oh, just a stream enter. All right. So
I could be wrong, but
I'm trying to remember. But anyway, so this is essentially, and there's other suttas where you see this, where essentially Anathapindika is gone. He's dead. He's been reborn as a deva, and so I guess he's coming back, like the devas who came to Jeta's Grove to listen to the Buddha. He is coming back as a deva. This indeed is that Jeta's Grove, the resort of the order of seers, dwelt in by the Dhamma king, the Buddha, a place that gives me joy. And remember, Anathapindika was the one who bought this grove from Prince Jeta, and he gave it to the Sangha, he gave it to the Buddha. So it gives him joy that he did this, and so many suttas and so many wonderful teachings were given there that helped so many people. Action, knowledge, righteousness, virtue, and excellent life. By this are mortals purified, not by clan or by wealth. Therefore, a person who is wise, out of regard for his own good, should carefully examine the Dhamma. Thus he is purified in it. Sariputta truly is endowed with wisdom, with virtue and with inner peace. Even a bhikkhu who has gone beyond, at best, can only be equal to him. Now, was it at the Sunday session you were talking about this? About what session was it?
This was there. I think it's in the Maj. It might not be. It might be in the Anguttara Nikaya. In one of the other collections, there is a sutta, and it's talking about the final days of Anathapindika. And I was passing away, and Sariputta came and gave him a Dhamma talk. Now, after he passed away, in that sutta, he returns as a devata of stunning beauty, and he praises Sariputta. And then he disappears, and Ananda is there, and Ananda doesn't have like psychic powers then. And he's like, that devata seemed really familiar. And he was praising Sariputta. He must have been at Anathapindika. And the Buddha is like, you don't have psychic powers. You just figured that out by reasoning. But Ananda, you are right. Anathapindika had a lot of faith in Sariputta.
Mm-hmm. Because he taught him, because of that on his dying breath, he taught him a teaching that they didn't teach to lay people usually. Mm. And then Anathapindika says, for the benefit of all, for those who have little dust in their eyes, please teach these things to lay people. Right? All right, which is one of the main reasons why I don't believe there's such a thing as teachings not for lay people. even though that is something that is part of the Buddhist tradition. People believe certain teachings are not for lay people. Adevata, stingy. Those who are stingy here in the world, niggardly folk, revilers. This is a Bhikkhu Bodhi translation, and he got in trouble for using that word, but it's still there. Revilers, people who, this simply means very stingy, a person who doesn't give. Revilers, people who create obstacles for others engaged in giving alms. What kind of results do they reap? What kind of future destiny? We've come to ask the Blessed One this. How are we to understand it? The Blessed One. Those who are stingy here in the world, niggardly folk, revilers, people who create obstacles for others engaged in giving alms. They might be reborn in hell, in the animal realm, or the Yama's world. We know King Yama. You've heard me talk about King Yama enough, right? The divine messengers. If they come back to the human state, they are born in a poor family, where clothes, food, pleasures, and sport are obtained only with difficulty. Whatever the fools may expect from others, even that they do not obtain. This is the result in this very life, and in the future a bad destination. Adevata. We understand thus what you have said. We ask, O Gautama, another question. Those here who, on gaining the human state, are amiable and generous, confident in the Buddha and the Dhamma, and deeply respectful towards the Sangha. What kind of result do they reap? What kind of future destiny? We've come to ask the Blessed One this. How are we to understand it? The Blessed One. Those here who, on gaining the human state, are amiable and generous, confident in the Buddha and the Dhamma, and deeply respectful towards the Sangha. These brighten up the heavens where they've been reborn. If they come back to the human state, they are reborn in a rich family where clothes, food, pleasures, and sport are obtained without difficulty. They rejoice like the devas who control the goods amassed by others. This is a result in this very life, and in the future a good destination. Katikara. We'll save that for next time because we're at the end here. All right. Katikara the Potter. Okay, friends. This brings us to the end of our Dhammapalooza for this week. If you've enjoyed this, come visit us again Monday. Monday is at 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's USA Eastern Time, New York time. We do this every Monday. And every day except for Sundays in the mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern, USA, New York time, I do what's called the monastery experience. So we do precepts, chanting, and I give a little Dhamma talk, a little thought of the day. So you can come to this very same channel, the live version of this channel every morning at 8 if you like to come join us in our chanting and listening to some Dhamma to start the day off correctly. And then please like and subscribe if you'd like to check out all the other videos on the channel. Lots of stuff on the channel. Much appreciated. And I hope to see you again either next week or another time. So we're going to do our final sharing of merits before we end. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha amehi, sampadang punya sampadang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhya, akasata chabumata deva naga mahiddhika punyang tang anumoditva charang rakantu sasanang. Now the English. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired, for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, friends, until next time, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. May you have a very spiritually successful and peaceful week. Practice well and be well.